Thank you, Dr. Solomon. I might add that more detailed information about many of the topics we're discussing today can be found in the third edition of Dr. Solomon's book, How Much, How Often, For What, which also includes a number of inspiring first-hand testimonials about the health-restoring benefits of noni juice. Dr. Solomon has sold more than 1 million of his books on noni juice worldwide. Our viewers may be surprised to learn that diabetes trails only heart disease and cancer as a leading cause of mortality in the United States. Now, while it's true that there is no known cure for diabetes, Dr. Solomon, your findings suggest that as many as 4 out of 5 diabetes sufferers can find some relief by incorporating a steady regimen of noni juice.
That's right. We looked at 5,575 people who had diabetes and who drank Tahitian noni juice. Of those, 82% said, there's no question about it, it helped me in some way. The average that they drank was 3 ounces a day.
More than 17 million Americans suffer from asthma, a number that has more than doubled since 1980. And most people realize that with severe asthma, tasks like walking up a flight of stairs, taking a leisurely stroll outdoors may result in several hours of labored breathing. What you may not realize is in some of these cases, especially among the elderly, asthma can be fatal, although most asthma deaths are preventable. Amazing, Dr. Solomon, your findings indicate that noni may benefit more than 70% of asthma sufferers. Tell us about noni juice and asthma.
What you say is absolutely true, and it's going to get worse because as there's more pollution of our air, our water, and our food. All 3 of those are triggers of asthma, and they're all getting worse, not better, in this country. So we can expect more asthma. But of the 8,077 people who had asthma and who took Tahitian noni juice, 71% said it helped their symptoms. They either breathed better, they didn't have the compression of their chest, they didn't cough as much, they didn't wheeze, and that was on 2.5 ounces a day.
I know a lot of people are affected by asthma, but what about other respiratory conditions?
Same thing. What I told you for asthma is true for other respiratory conditions also. And they're getting worse too because of the pollution that we just spoke about. And infections are a big part of a trigger for asthma as well as for other respiratory infections. It's a double-edged sword there. And of those people that had respiratory infections, which accounted for 3,587, 72% said Tahitian noni juice helped my symptoms. They made me and allowed me to breathe better. And that was on an average of taking 3 ounces a day.
Up to this point, our discussion has covered a number of physical ailments and conditions. Now, I'd like to ask you about emotional or psychological ailment. I'm talking about one of the true plagues of modern life, clinical depression.
It is a true plague. It's terrible. And people who are depressed don't even know it at the beginning many times, but others around them will know it because they slow down, they're not with it, they don't eat as well, they're irritable. It can just be a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing on the person who has it. It's a terrible thing on the family. Now, there are 3 types of major depressions. One is the type we all know about. You just get depressed and you can't do much of anything, and you just want to vegetate and you want to be left alone. Don't bother me. The next type is what they call dysthymia. That's a milder form. You have a lower mood and it lasts much, much longer. Then the third type is bipolar. Bipolar, you go down like the major depression, but then you bounce up like you're hypomanic or manic. And then you go down, and then you go up. And when you're up, you can do all kinds of crazy things. You can go out and buy all kinds of things on credit cards. You can get into fights. It's just tough situation because you don't have the judgment at that point and you don't realize what you're doing. And then when you go down, you just want to get away from everything. In fact, sometimes you want to commit suicide. So these are life-threatening diseases. The thing that's truly amazing about this is that out of 1,512 people who had a mixture of these depressions, 80% said they were helped. And not only did they say it, their family members and friends said it too. Said yes, they were helped. And that was about 3 ounces a day. There's now new research to show that this is not a psychological problem. It is a chemical imbalance in your brain. It's a chemical imbalance between the faulty production and utilization of serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, GABA, and neurotransmitters. So there's a real reason for it. Again, what does the Hishinoni juice? It helps bring people up who are down, and it helps people bring down who are up.
Yes. You know, Dr. Solomon, I think the statistics are staggering about people who either have depression or who have been affected by it, either directly in the family or just running into people on the street. I think that's some good news for a lot of people once they get to know all of this.
Thank God that is true.
Yes. Dr. Solomon, in your book, you have a section that deals with multiple sclerosis and Parkinson's disease. Your research in these areas didn't have nearly the same number of contacts as in other conditions, yet you mentioned that noni appeared to relieve symptoms in more than half of the respondents. What leads you to believe that noni juice may also benefit those who suffer from these conditions?
The reason that I put it in was if you have MS or if you have Parkinson's disease, you're looking for help. And I didn't have enough to make it statistically valid in any way. This is, I'm not saying it helps, I'm not saying it doesn't help, I'm saying I don't know. But it just happened that out of 25 people who had MS, 52% were helped on 3.5 ounces a day. It also happened that if you had a family member who had MS, your chances of getting it were 1 in 100, whereas if you didn't, it was 1 in 1,000. So if you have a family member, it's much more possible and probable you'll get it. When it comes to Parkinson's disease, we again had 25 people, 52% were helped on 3.5 ounces a day. And there, the brain cells that make dopamine die faster. Now, I'm not holding out this as any panacea at all. I don't want to give anybody any false hope. On the other hand, I didn't want to not mention it because some people, a few, did appear to be helped. So what I'm interested in doing is getting more and more data to see, does it really help? Will these statistics hold up when the numbers get greater?
Okay. You've talked about cancer and you've also talked about diabetes, but heart disease remains the #1 health crisis in America today. And high blood pressure and stroke are the premier indicator that a person's heart and blood vessels may be in trouble. Yet, I have to believe one of the most amazing aspects of your research, noni seem to have nearly across-the-board capacity to help people lower their blood pressure and help with symptoms of strokes. Tell us about your heart health findings.
Heart, blood pressure, and stroke are 3 parts of the cardiovascular system, or problems of the cardiovascular system. Heart disease, we found that 3.5 ounces a day of Tahitian noni juice helps 76% of 2,158 people who had heart disease. Blood pressure, which is a silent killer of those people with blood pressure elevations, 1,869 people, 84% said that 3 ounces of Tahitian noni juice a day helped them, and in fact, many of their doctors have documentation their blood pressure went down.